Welcome back to JT and Johnny. As JT would say, the birds are singing and the weather is nice. It's been a great conversation so far, but JT, we've got him on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the co-host of the Midday 180 on 104.5 The Zone, which you can hear every weekday from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. He's got a rising podcast. It's called Chit Chad, and we also know that he's heavily involved with Tennessee high school football. He's the great, he's my friend, and he's here. He's Chad Withrow. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on, John. Good hearing from you, man.
Hey, well, thanks so much. You know, like I told you this morning, if I come across like a giddy homer, it's because I am. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of the show, but
it's because it's a great show, man.
I need to give you a full disclosure, Chad. My opinion on this drama has been not based on my fandom of you or your co-hosts or the station. I'm purely benign of any type of opinion that is biased. I just happen to disagree with my co-host, JT, and we wanted you to come on board and kind of set us straight. But first, if you don't mind, Chad, tell me a little bit about this podcast, Chit Chad, and then if you don't mind, tell us what you think about the status of radio and the uprising, or if you will, the prevalence of the podcast. Is that the way we're going in radio?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the podcast, as you said, that's a great intro by you, Johnny. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's called Chit Chat, and essentially my goal is I want to sit down with people that interest me, and just sit down over drinks and talk about their life, talk about their career, talk about them. And it doesn't have to be sports. You know, I've interviewed former Mayor Megan Barry. I've interviewed Demetria Kaladimos. I've also interviewed Keith Bullock, Clay Travis, you know, people from all walks of life, the founder of Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Brewery. So it's a little bit of everything. There's going to be some more business elements mixed into it also. But it's been a lot of fun for me to sit down for an hour-long conversation with someone and be really kind of uninhibited by anything. In terms of the future of radio, I don't think sports talk radio or talk radio locally is going anywhere anytime soon. That's still kind of the last bastion of radio in a lot of ways, where you can't really get that anywhere else. You know, you can't get a daily show where you're talking about current issues in the city in which you live unless you go to the radio. But what you're seeing is a blending of the two elements. You know, a big part of our show now is the podcast. Because we stream online, but also once the show ends, it's going right to the podcast. And we take pride in a lot of people seeking out our content and going and listening to that podcast. So what you're going to see is more blending of the two elements. You know, what a radio show, like you guys, what you have to offer is we're on radio and we have a podcast. The podcast can only offer the podcast. So I do think there's value in that for sponsors out there and for shows out there. So
that's a good point.
I don't think it's anywhere close to dead, but certainly there's going to be a blending of the two.
What do you think, Chad, about the I've heard others say that with the podcast environment, you're able to maybe unpack some things and spend a little more in-depth time with maybe your guest that's with you because you have control over that environment a little better and can kind of space things out that fits your needs a little better. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it, and you're dead on right. You know, you can format it however you want, and the spots are going in after the fact, so it's fun to sit down and just kind of see where something goes. And that's what I love about my podcast is the ability to freelance and just have a conversation. It's not necessarily a straightforward interview, but yet it is an interview, and you're not worried about breaking after 7 or 8 minutes. I think, which is certainly the benefit of the podcast. And look, we're seeing it with what you view also, right?
Right.
I mean, there are streaming services because there's no commercials. You know, I mean, how many people sit through commercials now?
Right.
At any point. So, you know, that's kind of where everything is going. It's sort of tailored to the individual, and it's a la carte. You know, you can consume whatever you want, and you can kind of consume it how you want. So that's where the podcast certainly has the advantage.
Absolutely. Now, as we move into our main topic a little bit today, Chad, some of our folks may not be as aware that you probably offer the most comprehensive high school coverage in Tennessee. I know, and I've said this on your show. I've called your show and communicated this in the past, that when we first moved to town back in 2010, and we were kind of learning our way around Nashville, and we had young children that were growing up. I wanted to get a feel for the community, and I, being a former athlete and playing football, I wanted to kind of get a feel for the community, and I found at some point I found your show and what you guys were doing, and it was done with excellence and very informative and
He's setting you up with the brown nosing, Chad. Be careful.
No, I'm not. But I'm just saying, it's just
there's a butt coming here, I feel like.
No. It's a great. It's been a great show, and I know many people that have really enjoyed it, and folks need to check it out and be dialed into that because it's awesome. So I just want to tell you thanks for that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and it's definitely a labor of love. In all honesty, I probably shouldn't do the high school show anymore. I should hand it off to someone at the station that's younger. But I just have this mental block where I can't give it up. Like, that's kind of how I got my start at the radio station, was hosting that show in 2006 when I was 24.
Yeah.
So I just, for whatever reason, mentally, I cannot hand it over to someone else because I feel like I'd be handing my career over to someone else if I did that. So,
yeah,
I love doing it also. I legitimately like going in on Friday nights and talking high school football.
Sure. I love to pick up on the fact, Johnny, that he said he's getting older. He looks like he's 25 , guys.
He's a young kid.
Yeah.
He's a puppy
thank
dog.
you. Yeah. So I'm 37 but look 25. You're right, Johnny. Thank you.
All right, Chad, let's dig in. We beat around the bush a little bit here, so I don't know if you had a chance to listen. We tried to tell our listeners kind of the historical basis to this great controversy that's causing all of traffic just to come to a standstill, quite frankly. This is a big deal, but I think we got the facts down in regards to the Gallatin game. Now, JT said that you were bashing Beech a little bit. I didn't want to use that word, but we invited you on.
That's fair. I was bashing them a bit after the fact.
Okay, so tell us, man. Just lay it out for us, man. Here is your podium. You're not constrained by Mr. Kaharski or Mr. Hutton or the confines of 104.5 The Zone. You've got a free podium to just kind of give us your side.
Yeah, no. So look, it all starts pretty simply. TNHighSchoolFootball.com, the website that I run. We do a game of the week. Will Bowling, Jonathan Parks are on the call of that game. And we've had no issues other than the policy with Williamson County Schools. They don't allow any outside broadcast, but every school we go to, very accommodating. So, want us out there. And we're doing a game on Facebook Live, but the benefit of it is we simulcast on 104.5 The Zone. So you get the power of 104.5 The Zone with the game, plus you're going to get the video elements on Facebook Live. And Will and those guys do a great job with the broadcast. Anyways, we go to Beech. We wanted to do their game against Gallatin. I didn't have the conversation. Will Bowling did, but he recounted it to me exactly. And we were basically told, no, thank you. We already have too many broadcasts there. We don't want another live broadcast. There's not room for you anyways. There's someone with a scissor lift that's here, but we don't want you there. So we asked, hey, we could do it from the visitor bleachers or this and that, and we were told no. So I have a pretty blanket policy that if a high school is not allowing good coverage to come in, that I object to it, because I view this as if I were still a high school basketball player or played sports in any way. And the more coverage, the better. I mean, if I were playing at Beech High School or anywhere, and I found out that I couldn't go watch the professional broadcast of my game the day after the game simply because some athletic director and principal decided they didn't want someone there, I'd be mad about it. So I do get angry when schools do that, and it's very few and far between. That's why this Beech thing is so rare, is that no other school has done that. So I objected to it.
So what about the contrarians out there, Chad, who may say, well, it's not so much that, it's just a little bit of Chad being a little get off my lawn and having his feelings hurt because he's Chad Withrow, doesn't like to just accept being told no. What about those folks?
Well, look, personal pride, like you don't want to be told no on something like that. But it really isn't personal with me. It's more of a confusion as to why you would make that decision, I think, more than anything else. Like if people don't like me, that's fine. I'm on air for 20 hours a week. and I say a lot of things. So there's going to be people who, for whatever reason, don't like me, and I'm okay with that. I just don't understand why you would refuse coverage if you were high school. And look, I'm not trying to say, oh, you're a high school, you have to do this and do that, but you got to look at it from these kids need exposure, the coaches need exposure. It's something worth your time to cover, and when people are making it hard for you to cover it, it makes you less inclined to go out of your way to do things like that, and that's the problem with it. It became personal because they said no to us doing the game, and then I went after Beech on air. But once that was over, I thought it was over, right? I continued to cover Beech the same way. We nominated players for Player of the Week. We changed nothing at the website, nothing on 104.5 The Zone, and how we talked about Beech. So I assumed it was over, and then they decided to basically blackball me from the broadcast this Friday night.
Wow. What do you say to that, JT? Ha! Boy, now look at my shirt. Now look at me bow up. Mr. Whit, just drop that mic right now.
And look, here's where I really have a problem with it, honestly.
Preach it, Chad.
Okay, fine. You played your cards. You told me no. Well, I played my card, which is one of the highest-rated sports shows in the country, and I blasted you, and you got made fun of because you were being stupid with that decision. Okay, great. To me, it's over at that point. They played their card. I played my card. Well, then they decided to come back, and I was honestly, Jonathan Hunt and I joked about it, like, boy, what if the TV crew decided to go to Beech? And we kind of laughed, like, oh, that'll be fun for me to go to Beech and have some fun with it.
Wasn't there a part of you, though, that thought that could happen, though?
Well, yeah, not really thinking they would actually see me on the broadcast and call my TV 30 and tell them that they were not going to do the game if I was there. And then taking a step further, and their principal told my TV 30, not only that, he can't pay for a ticket and get in the gate.
Wait,
which is
back
just
up.
a ridiculous statement to make.
Wait, back up. That's where I'm like, come on. No, so you weren't allowed to come and watch the game?
No, well, I was okay. Again, this is all third party.
Okay.
I'm hearing this from someone who talked to my TV 30, but then they later went back and got clarification. They were told I could not do the broadcast, and they took it a step further and said he would not be allowed in the gate if he tried to come to the game, period. Which is just, and this is what really, again, we're getting to different levels of what bothers me and annoys me about this. Okay, whatever, fine. I then email both Kenny Howe, the principal,
sure,
and I think her name is Christy Utley, the athletic director.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I emailed them asking for clarification. Can you give me a statement on why you don't want me to do your game? And furthermore, can you please expound on I can't go to the game and get in the gate? Because I was told that's what you said. There's been nothing. No response from anyone. That's cowardly. That's not how you do business. I'm willing to talk to them about it. I'd be fine having the discussion, but don't not respond. Don't do that and then hide behind everything once you do it. That's where I really have a problem with it.
Well, Chad, do you really think that they are, these are principals and athletic directors of large campuses, and they've got a lot of plates in the air that they're trying to cover? Could their mindset be that's just another thing on their list, and it doesn't impact things one way or the other, so why do I have to spend time on it? Or their process or their thought process could be, we're not being cowardly, we've moved on and there's other things that are going on.
Well, they haven't moved on, though. That's the problem, right?
Well, according to third-hand information, right?
And I was ready to let bygones be bygones and go do a broadcast at Beech and call their game professionally. And then they didn't let it die. See, I don't buy that argument for this reason. If they're so busy and they've got other things to worry about and they can't worry about these things,
right,
then why make the effort to call the TV station and have me removed from a broadcast? That seems like a lot of extra effort.
Did they
actually have that in their mind to do that? And then, now I'm too busy. Now that I made the effort to make sure you couldn't do the broadcast, now I can't possibly respond to an email because we have so much going on at Beech High School.
Right. So, do you have it? Is that firsthand information that you have that they called my TV 30, or how did that process actually shake out?
Well, they spoke to my TV 30 and they said that I couldn't do the game. I don't know if they called or this was just in conversation with them, or
right.
It was. I know it was in a phone conversation. I don't know who called who, but I'm sure they were just talking about the game. and that's where they told
Well,
me
and
that.
now you would know this better than I would, Chad. What's the typical process for? My understanding of that situation was that they, in their discussions about having them come out and do the game and do My TV 30's broadcast, that's just a stipulation that they placed on there when they agreed to have My TV 30 come. I'm not so sure that the impression that they turned around and made a separate reach out and a separate conversation at a separate time about you specifically. I'm not certain about that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they made the stipulation that I couldn't do the broadcast
At some point, right?
It was in their head enough where they were thinking about it.
Sure.
They told My TV 30 that I couldn't do the broadcast in
Absolutely.
their negotiation. So to me, that's a little bit of extra effort to do that. It doesn't take much to respond to an email and say exactly where you're coming from. Look, I'd love to talk to them, honestly.
Sure.
If they want to. I've talked about if they want to call our show. I'd love to have just a
right. Hey,
with them.
Yeah, Chad, I'm gonna jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
I appreciate where you're coming from with that. But having a high school student locally in a present day high school, in fact, the actual high school that you're speaking about, it's hard sometimes as parents just to get quality back and forth conversation with administration, much less an outside entity. But having said that, I can't speak one way or the other as to whether that happened or not, and to what level that happened, or their concern, or what have you. I just know this oftentimes it's very difficult to get a continuous, get an appropriate communication back and forth through the schools. Now, let's go back, if you don't mind, to because the one thing that I took exception to as a Beech parent was that the concept that you guys made the request, they responded no. A lot of people would say then, well, why isn't it over then? And the simple reason, according to what you shared with me, is that it's not over because you have a personal policy that you don't accept that and you call that out.
Well, he's got a show where like he said, he's on the air for 20 hours, so it's an opinion-based
I didn't interrupt you, Johnny.
Oh.
So you chose to take it that following week and say something, and from what I've heard, that is the issue that parents and those who are affiliated with with Beech have. Now, I can't say that the administration feels one way or the other. I just know how many parents, school board members, other people that I've talked to have communicated that. Look, your concept that it was over after you had the last word, that's your take on that. Their concept is, okay, they requested, they said no. Why is this going on? It's over. It's done. So you can speak to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, two things. I keep hearing about this. This is where they're coming from, and this is what they're saying. They can talk, right? We're not dealing with the President of the United States. It's a principal at a public high school. It's an athletic director at a public high school. I would love to hear from them. So I'm hating this third-party stuff where people keep calling our show and say, let me give you Beech's side. Well, screw that. Beech can give me their side. I refuse to accept the fact that these people can't speak or can't respond to an email. I think that's complete cowardice. Here's the other thing. People have told us no before. We tried to do a game at Father Ryan. They reached out to us when we couldn't go to Beech. They wanted us to be there. There was rain in the forecast. We couldn't be in the press box. They then had to tell us no, but they worked with us, okay?
Sure.
That's the difference. I have no problem with someone saying, look, we tried, we can't make it work, we'd love to have you at a future game, yada, 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 whatever. This was a 1-minute conversation where the woman said, we don't want you there. We don't want another live broadcast. Her husband calls the game also, which you could say is a conflict of interest. To me, that's my issue with it. I wouldn't have gone on and said anything about them had they just said, look, we like what you do, we'd love to have you another time, but we just can't make it work this game. But that was not the tone of what exactly happened. So to answer your question, which is a good question, that is where I have the issue.
Sure.
I don't like people just shutting people. And look, I say this about anything. If you guys covered high school football and wanted to go do a game, I want you there also. I have no... I'm across the board with this. If it's good high school coverage, I want people to have access to it, and I want people to see a game. So
I think you would also, but I think you would also agree, Chad, that when you're talking about a high school you're not talking about whether you call out a principal or you call out an athletic director. Most of the general public, they don't see just a principal or an athletic director. They see a tribe, they see a community, they see a family. And so it's like calling out dad. Now, dad makes mistakes all the time. Dad's not a perfect person at all, but you just called him out. And so it makes it hard to defend another side's issue when in some people's minds you just picked on dad. So I think that has a lot to do with the Buck Nation, so to speak, that might be upset over some of those situations, and especially those that are involved in the football program or the cheerleading program or the athletic department or things like that. They say, well, we don't care what the issue is. You said something about, you went on the air and used the word Beech High School, and it had a negative connotation. So now we're not fans, so you're welcome to your opinion, but nevertheless, there's going to be some fallout because of that. I'm sure you can appreciate that. I'm not saying it's warranted. I'm not saying that it's appropriate or even right, but I am identifying that as a necessary thing that is part of the high school culture. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure. And look, the only people who object to what I said or are backing Beech on this are people associated with Beech. So
Sure.
that kind of tells you where this story lies. And
Totally.
I get that.
Totally.
And that's fine. It's not people coming from other places.
Totally, absolutely.
Oh, boy, it's either people who don't like me or people associated with Beech.
Totally
I'll
right.
stay consistent with this. I love the Beech program. I think Anthony Crabtree's done a great job.
Sure.
I think their players are good. Like, I'm never going to – I got to be clear with this. I'm never going to allow an issue I have with two administrators cloud me from covering Beech. Like, I'm not going to not nominate one of their players for Player of the Week in Sumner County, or I'm not going to not say the score of their game because I have a beef with two adults, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I do want to make that part of it clear. And even if
Good.
Beech Nation hates me, I'm still going to cover them, the exact same way. That's never going to change.
Yeah, I don't think, Chad, that any of them. Well, I can't speak for everybody, but I would say most people would not say that they would hate you or use strong language like that. They would use things like, tantrum, petty, things like that I would think would be unjustified, but nevertheless, those are the types of things that would come out of that from those few that would, in their mind, feel that they're offended. So, but hey, people are offended all the time, and they have every right to be offended. And what I applaud you for is that, hey, man, this is what you do, this is what you believe in, you do what you do well, and we appreciate that. And it's certainly appropriate for folks to come down on different sides of this issue. And I think, generally speaking, and I know you feel this way as well, anytime the journalist becomes part of the story, that's not necessarily the best thing, right? It should be about, like you mentioned, the kids, the athletes, the programs, that sort of thing, which is what you're there to
promote. And what I would
promote.
say to that is, you're spot on right. It should be about the kids, the athletes, the coaches. That's why Beech has to say yes to coverage like this.
Right.
Because that's what it's ultimately about. And when I talk about it, I'm speaking on behalf of the kids because I'm seeing myself as a 17-year-old praying to have games broadcast somewhere. I never had the opportunity to go back and watch one of my games online when I was playing, for instance, or watch a game. So anytime adults cut that out from kids, I'm going to call them out. And consequences be damned. I'm not really worried about that part of it. But again, I'll say, look, I'm going to keep covering Beech the same exact way. And you used the word petty. Look, maybe it was petty to go on air and talk about it, but I'm going to call out schools that do that. But you got to also say, what's petty about it now? I'm sitting here telling you I'm going to keep covering them the same exact way. Nothing has changed with me, yet they come back after the fact and say, but Chad can't even be on our campus.
Oh, yeah, it's punitive.
He can't broadcast
Sure.
the game. And then when I call them out on it and ask for a response, silence is what I get. So, look, I'll just leave that out there. Your listeners can figure that part of it out.
Sure.
So who's being petty now?
Our tens of listeners, Chad. By the way, this is Johnny here. Maybe I get a chance to chime in on this hot button topic there.
Yeah, well, two against one. I got to stand up for myself.
Well, JT, we live in this world that we live in this personal injury lawyers are making all the money, and that's just where we if you get your feelings hurt, then there's punitive damages involved. And I think that's what ultimately two things that this comes down to, Chad, JT, is one, it sounds like some people got their feelings hurt, so they wanted to punish somebody. But two, to me,
Chad, including Chad.
Yes, well, okay. But going back to the original point, which is my point, I think Chad and I agree, is that the exposure that was going to be made available to these kids as far as the exposure on 104.5 The Zone and more visual presence for their athletes was missed out on. So to me, that's the biggest tragedy. Now, how this all unfolded, it all comes down to, well, people say things and we got our feelings hurt, so we're going to have something punitive. But also to Chad's point, JT, is the response. And I know that people are too busy to respond, but I get irritated. For example, when we went 3 years at Beech and we didn't get it, we got rezoned. I did send a letter to the school board and to the main guy, and I got no response but a form letter that was in return. And I thought that maybe I was warranted a conversation, a phone call, or something besides just a typical form letter. And
Right.
I think that's part of Chad's beef is it's like, hey, I'm not asking for special treatment. I don't mind being told no, but hey, a conversation maybe is warranted. And your position is, hey, we're just too busy because we're Beech.
Well, let me jump in, and I'll kind of end it with this. Ultimately, the thing I feel about it all is more sadness now than anything. It's not even anger or frustration, because look, it is them not wanting me to be there isn't going to change anything about my coverage on the site or on the station. I'm still going to do cover them. It's not going to really affect anything. But I'm honestly more sad that this is where we are, right? That like this is the impasse that we can't work through, and that I'm now blackballed from the broadcast at their game, which is just unfortunate. And again, it's not going to change anything or any way that I cover the Beech football team moving forward.
Well, did you tweeted out a photo, and it's a really nice closing to your season. Now, was that happenstance that there happened to be a screenshot of the final score between Shelbyville and Beech?
Johnny, I have no idea what you're talking about. My producer just sent that photo to me. If there's something in that photo, that's up for someone to see.
Okay.
I don't know what was in there. I promise.
Yeah, that was nice.
I can neither confirm nor deny. That was just a photo that was sent to me that I posted as a thank you to our broadcast team.
Fair enough. Well, listen, Chad, I think we've put a bow on that, and man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I want to leave you with one final question. This is a curveball. We always throw a curveball on the station. We're a show about music, so when I start talking sports, I get in trouble. But the CMAs were on night before last, and a song that we've talked about, and I've heard you talk a lot about bro country and the status of the music industry. A little song called "Old Town Road" by Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus got the award for I think it was musical event of the year. I just wanted to see if you had an opinion on that trend and what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that brings a lot of attention to a genre is probably a good thing. But I mean, I don't know. I'm very old school when it comes to country music, so I don't really love it. But I also can understand that, I guess when it becomes that big, it can't be a bad thing for country music also. So I guess I both kind of agree with it and don't at the same time.
I gotcha. Well, in light of the last conversation we had, I can appreciate where you might tread a little bit lightly there, Chad. Well, listen, buddy, I know you got things to do. Sure appreciate the show, and certainly have to mention that the opinions of my co-host do not represent Johnny the Poet necessarily.
Look, look, in JT, right? That's fine. I mean, there's people who have that opinion. I'm totally cool with that. So I'm not worried about it all. I appreciate the back and forth, honestly.
All right, buddy. Have a great day. Thanks so much, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Talking to you.
You're listening to JT and Johnny on 101.7 FM, WQKR. We'll be right back.